everybody. Welcome to this week's Extra Point Show. Thanks for joining us as always.
Yep, unfortunately, it's only half of a victory week this week, as the Washington football team won a game, their fourth straight, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
the Niners lost to the Seahawks, which
Yeah,
was kind
yeah.
of unexpected, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I could have seen it going either way. I thought that we would win, but Seattle is like that team that's always got our number, as evidenced by the
Right.
fact that they've won four straight against us now. So, not ideal. Did knock us down to 6-6. We'll get more into that here in a little bit. In terms of other news in the NFL, this past week that happened, or as far as the other games, just to cover some scores and kind of go into current playoff positionings. The Cowboys beat the Saints on Thursday Night Football last week in a 27-17 game.
Yeah, unfortunately, they won that and putting them to 8-4, and
Yep.
clearly ahead in the division. So the next couple divisional games between us and them and their other opponents are very important to see how that
Right,
plays out.
right, and then with the head-to-head coming up with Dallas, the first of two this week upcoming, so that
Hmm.
game's extremely important. But Dallas has kind of lost a little bit of the the steam that they had early in the season. I'm not saying that they're not. I mean, they're still definitely a good team, and they have one of the best offenses in the league. But they're definitely not as hot as they were at one point. But yeah, and the loss also on the other end of it, it knocked the Saints down to 5-7, and Taysom Hill getting injured. He got the start in that game, injured his hand. So going back to Trevor Simeon for the remaining 5 games with Jameis Winston also out. So we'll have to see.
Yeah,
The Saints technically not eliminated in the NFC playoff race. I mean, obviously they kind of go head to head with both the Niners. I mean, they're one of those teams like the Saints, the Vikings, the Eagles. All those teams are teams that you guys and us are
yeah,
directly competing with
Redskins.
to try to get in.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the time of the season where we're like, oh man, like, because
yeah. Well, I
we
mean,
always want both our teams to win, but then it gets
yeah.
to the
I
point
mean,
where you're like,
as of
fuck.
right now, they
At one
both had.
point, it might,
Yeah,
but it might come down at least at one point to where one of us losing is it means and it's
yeah,
just getting to that point, like.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can just both keep holding on to the wild card spots
Exactly,
like they are.
exactly.
Because as of right now, if the season ended right now, they're 6-7 in the wild card hunt. So
I do think though the Saints, they're probably not going to be an issue. They've lost 5 straight games in a season for the first time in the Sean Payton era. So I would say,
uh,
given that's the way things have been going, I don't think that we need to worry too much about the Saints being
yeah,
part of that. But they might turn things around. But given the quarterback issues that they have,
yeah,
really don't see them being much of an issue. The
yeah, and
Vikings
and
and
it's been other issues too. Like both of their tackles, like Teron Armstead and everything. Like both of their offensive tackles have been out. Kamara's been in and out of the lineup.
yep.
So I mean, they've had a lot of injuries. They've had injuries at the kicker position. Will Lutz, they're
Hmm.
normally star kicker's been out, so they've had kind of a who's who. I think Brian Johnson was actually on the Saints practice squad at one point this season. I think he's bounced around to several
Oh,
practice
was he
squads.
really?
Actually,
Okay.
no, he filled in for 4 games for the Saints. He was actually active for them.
Okay.
He was one of the Saints mini kickers. So, and we'll talk about him more in a little
Yeah,
bit.
he
But
did
yeah,
good for us for
yeah,
sure with
yeah,
that game-winning
definitely.
field goal.
So
I mean, you
so
can at
far
least
so
mention
far
that
so
real
good.
quick. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, and on top of that, also you talk about a team that's won, or I mean, I'm sorry, lost 5 straight. Let's talk about a team that's won 5 straight, the Miami Dolphins, as they picked up a 20-9 win over the Giants.
And
Uh,
and awesome for them on that. Thank you for taking the Giants down to 4-8.
yeah,
I appreciate that very much. So just to say,
yeah, yeah, and I mean that gets Miami was a team sitting at one point at 1-7. I
yeah,
think a few weeks ago we'd have been having the conversation if they hadn't started playing better about Brian Flores potentially being on the hot seat. But
absolutely.
I mean, with 6 straight, I mean they were a 10-win team. I know we've mentioned that before last year. Now they're up to
Hmm.
6-7, so they're still hanging around the AFC playoff conversation. So
Yeah, definitely.
not done yet.
It's interesting to see when teams just flip like that. Like the Saints, they were 5-2, I guess, if they lost 5 straight at one
Right,
point. So
right.
they started out really good and then they just fall apart. So it's crazy how things can just flip like that for teams.
Yeah,
Then you get teams like the Texans who just never surprise you with being terrible. They lost 31-0 to the Colts, which I mean, I don't think anybody really was surprised to
Yeah.
see the Colts win that game, but given the score, it's one of those ones. Anytime a team gets shut out with zero, it's kind
Yeah.
of sad, but it's hilarious at the same time. But when it's the Texans, you're kind of like, well, not that surprising. Like
Yeah. I
even the
mean, it's
Lions seem to play better than them. They don't win the games, but Jesus, they look better, like at least on paper.
yeah. I was having that conversation the other day about how I think that the Texans definitely are the worst team in the NFL, regardless of the
Mm-hmm.
record. Yeah, they might have one more win, but
Yeah,
overall, like the Lions give a way better effort week in and week out. So
I agree, definitely.
yeah,
I mean, and you know what? Good thing that they finally won their first game. I mean, we mentioned the Lions, and
yeah,
then this
yeah.
is
We
this is their
were
first
we were going
win
to talk
actually.
about that.
So
The
hooray,
first win for the
Lions! Like
Detroit Lions. Yeah, first win of the
congratulations,
Motor City.
you did it.
Yeah,
You
first
got a win. Like
first
you know
win of
those
the.
banners they put up in the
Yeah,
stadiums where they have
yeah,
like NFC champion. It'd be like won a game.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, well, you got to start somewhere, and I mean, they got their first win in the Motor City Dan Campbell era, so
And taking out the Vikings,
29-27 win
which is
over the
helpful
Vikings,
because
which
the
yeah,
NFC
exactly.
playoff race and to see them go to 5-7, that's definitely nice.
Yeah, the Vikings had proceeded to lose twice or two straight games after we beat them the week before, and then also losing to the Lions. But in that game, they didn't have Dalvin Cook because he separated his shoulder in the game against the Niners, as we talked about last week. So I think that kind of played a factor. He did come back in their Thursday night game, and they ended up picking up a win over Pittsburgh. Might as well mention that. So the Vikings are currently now 6-7. So they did get a little bit closer
Yeah.
to that playoff spot.
So they're right in the middle
Yeah,
with all of us. I mean,
yeah,
really, that they're
definitely
right in the
right in the
center.
thick of
And
things.
unfortunately, also with the Eagles because they won against the Jets, which I didn't actually know this, but I guess they were 12-0 against them of all time, which is the most wins without a loss in any all-time series.
Hmm.
Like if I had known that before that game turned on, I probably would be like, oh well, great, the Eagles are going to be 6-7. But I didn't realize that until after the fact. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
they
I mean,
lost
obviously they're not teams that
33-18.
yeah, one being AFC, one being NFC. Obviously, they don't meet a lot. So 12
Right.
times, like 12 meetings all time, really isn't a lot. But yeah, I mean, that is interesting because the Eagles have at points had a very good team, especially during the Andy Reid era, and then most recently their last Super Bowl run under Doug Peterson. But they the Jets have got, I guess, always kind of been pretty well, pretty
Pretty
much the Jets.
mediocre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I guess
Mediocre might even be like
yeah.
giving them a little too much.
Yeah, I guess that's not super shocking, but yeah, the Eagles at times have looked like a pretty good team this year. So, I mean, they definitely creamed the Jets 33-18. The Cardinals picked up their NFL leading 10th win over the Bears in a 33-22 game. It was a game in which Andy Dalton went on to throw 4 interceptions.
Mm.
Even still with that, I think that the Bears' offense was definitely moving the ball at times pretty well, and
Yeah, if
yeah,
he hadn't thrown the 4 picks, I mean, they only lost by 11, and to the 10-2 Cardinals. Like if he had maybe just thrown 1 or 2 picks as opposed to 4,
yeah,
I mean, it could have been a different game. But
yeah. It was the first game back for Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins, so
mm,
neither one of them played particularly well. Actually, I should say this. It was really that Kyler didn't have a lot of he didn't take a lot of opportunities, throwing the football. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns, but I want to say he had under like 200 passing yards. I was gonna see if I could get the actual numbers here.
yeah, I'm not sure what his passing yards were at
Okay,
all.
yeah, so he was 11 out of 15, so really good completion percentage, but only 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But he did have
Wow,
10,
that's
10
really low.
rushes for 59 yards and 2 rushing. So he accounted for 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing, but Yeah, the Cardinals just didn't generate. I don't know. You just expect their offense to be usually more explosive. And
I mean, they
DeAndre
still
Hop.
scored 33 points, so I mean, it's
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah, that's
doesn't
true.
really matter. I guess when you
Yeah,
look at the final score, it's I mean, but yeah,
yeah,
the 4 interceptions though has got to be a big part of
yeah.
that.
That's
I would imagine.
probably a
I
lot
didn't
of
see
what
that
what
game,
it
but
is
I
too.
imagine
Setting the
had
team
to have
up with
been.
with the short fields probably on those interceptions was probably
Yeah,
why there wasn't more yardage. That probably
like
makes a
that
lot
could
of
have been a
sense.
different game, but
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that surprising given the fact that they are 10 and they are one of the best teams in the league. I mean, they have the best record, I believe, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They've
So,
definitely
and
got the
apparently
best
they're
record.
7-0 on the road this season, and each win has been over 10 points. So,
Yeah,
pretty
they've been
impressive
they've
stat.
been winning. I think the only time they really scored under 30 points was like the first game we played them in when we held them to 17 when we lost 17 to 10. But they've been
Mm-hmm.
scoring under over 30 in just about every game they've played. Their offense is definitely explosive. I
Yeah,
mean, even like you said, in a game where they didn't generate a ton of offense, you know, they still got 33 points. So
that's what matters. If you got 33 points on the board, it's kind of like, well,
yeah, yeah. I mean that Matt Nagy offense is not equipped to handle a team that scores 33 points. They're just not. But yeah, also in a game with some high scoring point totals, the Chargers beat the Bengals in a battle of teams fighting for AFC playoff positioning. Both teams are now 7-5 after that game. With the
yeah. And
Chargers
Joe
winning.
Burrow was playing in that game, right?
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
Chargers
he
winning
got he got beat up.
41-22. Yeah, Joe Burrow's been, he's had a real good season. He's definitely, I think having quietly one of the best quarterback seasons in the NFL. But in that game, and I mean we've got him this week, so we'll have to see. I mean he's got the injury. George one. Can't but
Yeah, different.
so I mean this team that Joe Burrow the rookie and died in the NFC, or I'm sorry, in the AC North
Yeah,
playoff. So with especially with Baltimore kind of playing up and down recently, so the Bengals are right there.
yeah. It's odd that the Chargers and Bengals are both seven. Well, not that odd, but they both have the 7-5 record now after that game.
Yeah,
But I'd say the biggest notable point from this is that apparently the Chargers had 6 sacks in a game,
yeah,
which is the most since Week 16 of 2016. So in 5 years or so.
yeah,
So that's a pretty crazy game. That's why I said Joe Burrow got beat up because he
yeah.
got sacked 6 times. Man,
And
he
shockingly,
had a
none of
hell of a
those
day.
sacks were yeah, yeah, he did. And shockingly, none of those sacks were from Joey Bosa. So
Hmm.
all from different members of the.
Now, as long as it gets done. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't really,
yeah.
obviously don't like the Chargers. They beat us earlier in the season, but
Oh yeah,
can't
yeah,
got to give them credit where credit's due. I mean, you
yeah,
got 6 sacks in the game. Well, you can't.
definitely. Yeah, they're definitely coming on now that they're coached by Brandon Staley. He's a defensive minded coach. So obviously that's having and to get those 22 points because the game was like I want to say it was like 24-0 at one point. Like the Bengals had to claw back into it. So I mean they were playing from behind the entire game.
They
So
didn't give up. At least they tried and scored something.
yeah, yeah. Also notable, the Buccaneers ended up beating
Hmm.
the Falcons 30 to
My
17.
my hometown team now. Well, where I live. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I should say.
yeah, yeah. That puts
Damn,
Tampa at nine
Tampa
and three.
Bay.
Yeah, and drops Atlanta, another team in the NFC playoff race, down to
To
five and
5-7.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're not going to be an issue either. I would imagine. I mean, the Bucks beating them. I mean, before that game even aired, I was like, well, that seems like a pretty done deal.
yeah,
Although, I kind of thought the same thing when Washington played the Buccaneers, and that was the game I went to, and I'm all like,
yeah.
I'm probably gonna lose this game. So,
Tom threw
but
four
I'm,
touchdowns in that game for like
yeah,
I don't know the third or fourth time this season. He's had he leads the NFL in touchdown passes by
yeah.
let's see I want to say it's quite a bit.
Also, what's interesting, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
Tom Brady is a 10-0 career record versus the Falcons, which obviously most of those come from the Patriots, but
hmm.
still, and it includes playoff games.
Well, I mean he probably didn't. Let's see. So he's played them at least three of those times with the Buccaneers. So yeah, still mostly all with the
Yeah, I figured it had to at least be mostly
yeah.
with the
But now
Patriots.
now that he's in Tampa, he's playing them twice a season.
Yeah, he'll play in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But yeah, Tom's got 34 touchdown passes to 10 interceptions this season, and the next best. So Matthew Stafford has the second most with 30 touchdown passes, which is also good. 30 touchdowns, 9 picks. So yeah, Tom definitely leading in most touchdown passes by 4 currently.
Yeah, and Matthew Stafford lit up the Jaguars 37 to
Yeah,
7.
I don't think anybody's
Absolutely.
shocked by that.
No, of course not. I mean, with given the two teams, like that's you can just kind of breeze over
Yeah,
that one. But that is their largest win since week 2 of 2018. A 30-point win. So I guess good for the fucking Rams.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, they're also in that. The Rams are in the top wild card spot, so that really directly.
Yeah,
I mean, if they lose, that helps obviously all those other NFC wild card teams, but they got a pretty fortunate deal playing the Jags. The Jags, after winning 2 out of 4 and starting to look like they were turning it around, have
just got blown the fuck
they
out.
got blown out by us 30-10 a few weeks ago. Then they got beat by the Rams 37 to 7. So yeah, they've really just against the NFC West and other teams recently. They've just been kind of not looking good. There's been a lot of rumblings going on apparently that Urban Meyer. I mean, obviously we hadn't heard of this since like earlier in the season after the video surfaced and everything, but apparently there's a lot of like been altercations between Urban and players or Urban and assistant coaches where he's been
Hmm.
screaming at him, and I guess like several players have
Jesus.
told. I guess at the end of the game, like several of the Jaguars players were telling a lot of the Rams players, like their friends on the Rams, that Urban just doesn't treat them like adults. So I don't know if he just thinks that he can treat these guys like college athletes
Yeah, I
or
was
what.
gonna say, what does he think? He's still teaching like
Yeah,
or coaching college kids?
yeah.
Like, what? Come on, man! Like, he's
Yeah, I mean, in college, you can take away a man's scholar or a young man's scholarship or something like that. In the NFL, like if you pop off to like if he imagine him popping off to Josh Allen, the Jaguars' big defensive end down there, like that man will beat your ass. Like I mean, seriously, I don't know. It's a risky proposition, and obviously Urban's got he's been mentioned for some college jobs since the college season's wrapping up, but he says that he wants to see the Jaguars thing through. But they're 2-10 right now, so
Yeah, I don't see that going much longer. I mean, he might get another season, but given all the other controversy, I don't think so. There's just
yeah,
seems like there's too much going on.
we'll have to follow it and see what happens. But yeah, they did get smoked in that game, and he benched running back James Robinson after a fumble, and I guess Trevor Lawrence was like saying that you got to get him in there. James Robinson's like our best, running back.
Yeah, dude, you can't just bench someone because of one fumble. It happens, man.
Yeah,
Like, look at Gibson. Gibson, I think he's
yeah.
fifth in
He's got 5.
no, I think he's fifth in rushing yards right now. I think he has in the NFC, maybe not
Oh,
in the league, maybe it was the NFC,
oh
I
yeah. I
believe,
was
but
just
he's
gonna
like,
say he had 5 fumbles, but yeah,
oh,
he's
yeah,
got a ton of
you
yards.
are right about that as well. Yes,
Yeah,
but yeah, the fumbles aren't great, but he does have a lot of yards.
yeah. I
And
mean,
speaking of Gibson, going into the next game, which I'm just going to quickly cover because obviously we'll get into it more, but the Redskins beat the Raiders 17-15 for this
second
second
straight
week in a
week.
row.
Well, yeah,
17-15, which is a rare score to see.
yeah,
So we've had against Seattle and the Raiders, which both of those games were way too close. But we won with a 48-yard field goal with 37 seconds remaining. So the game wasn't even quite over after the field goal. I had to wait
yeah,
and see. But luckily we held them and did win that game. So
yep, yeah. And while we're talking about those games, we did unfortunately lose to the Seahawks, 30 to 23, which dropped us down to 6-6 on the season, and got the Hawks up to 4-8. The Seahawks only have like a 3% chance of making the playoffs, so
yeah,
really
very
not too
low.
worried about them. But you
But
know,
they
the,
just had to fucking beat you and
yeah, yeah,
take a win. It's like, come on, man.
yeah. And
But
what's
also, I
go
was
ahead?
going to say that Washington's also 6-6. So both the Niners and Washington have
Yeah,
the exact same record at this
yeah,
point. So kind of interesting.
yeah. I mean, Russell, deals on us, and I know we're gonna mention this, in the later part of the show, but Russell's basically the equivalent of Aaron Rodgers against the Bears against us. I mean, he's 17-4 against us all time since coming into the league in
Jesus.
2012. So, and we've lost 4 straight against the Seahawks. So, It's
So every time that you play the Seahawks, you're
yeah.
like,
So
fuck.
that's why, like, even though you were pretty like confident, you're like, oh, you guys should beat the Seahawks. I was like, nah, man. I was like,
Yeah.
the Seahawks have our number, man. I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
I didn't realize that. If I had known, I
Yeah.
probably would have been like, you're probably right. But
Russ
I
could be
honestly
having
thought
the shittiest season ever, and he'll come out and he'll deal against us.
he'll
Like,
just destroy the Niners for some
yeah,
fucking. He's like, fuck you guys. My finger's broken, but I'm at least winning this game for
yeah,
some reason.
exactly. Um,
Yeah,
the
that's crazy.
yeah, the Steelers kept their playoff hopes alive with a 20-19 win over the Ravens.
Ugh,
In an
unfortunately.
interesting game where I don't know if you ended up seeing that or hearing about that, but the Ravens got in at the end of the game, and then they went for two to try to win the game.
To win the game, and then
Yeah.
they lost because they're
Uh,
idiots. Yeah.
Well, so basically, what John Harbaugh said was that I guess their cornerback room was too depleted to go to overtime, which is I guess solid logic. I mean, I guess they had like no healthy quarters, so it's like how are you going to go play defense? So he just tried to
Yeah.
win the game right
I
then
didn't
and there.
realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what he said as far as that, but that dropped the Ravens down to 8-4. So they're only one game up on the 7-5 Cincinnati Bengals, and then the Steelers are 6-5. And actually, after their loss to the Vikings on Thursday Night Football, they're 6-6-1. So still alive in the playoff race, but definitely, um, yeah, they were down like 29-0 in that game against the Vikings, and had to kind of climb back and ended up only losing 36-28. But for 3 quarters, Ben just looked absolutely terrible, and then in the fourth quarter, he looked like an MVP candidate. So it's like
Yeah, that was
bizarre.
weird.
Yeah.
It's like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins looks real great, and then just, oh, I
Kirk
fucked up.
Cousins is the opposite though. Kirk Cousins will look great through 3 quarters, and then he looks bad in the fourth quarter.
Exactly, exactly. Right when it matters. And it's like, oh, we need this.
Yeah,
Oh man, I threw a pick. You like that?
yeah. I liked it when he did it on his first play in the third quarter against us a few weeks ago. I really like that. Aziz Al-Shire in the cover 3 drop.
That was. I remember seeing that one. That was
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. He took it down to the 2, and then we just fed it to Elijah Mitchell, and one play later we were in. But yeah, just two more quick games to cover here. The Chiefs, they're still not looking as explosive as they once did, but they are 8-4 now, leading the AFC West after a 22-9 win over the Broncos. So
They'll be in the playoffs.
yeah, they'll definitely be in the playoffs there. Their
And
biggest
against Den.
competition. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say their biggest competition in that division seems to be right now the 7-5 Chargers, who are right on their heels behind by one game.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I expect that the Chiefs are probably. I mean, they've looked a little better as the season has gone on, so I expect that they're probably gonna,
Yeah,
take
they've
that.
just
And if not, there's always a wild card. So
right. Yeah, and they've just got to limit the turnovers. So
yeah.
so I think that's a big part of it.
But beating Denver, isn't that surprising when they've won 12 straight games against them now? So
Yeah,
I did not realize that. That's a hell of a stat.
that's domination. Yeah, absolutely. And in the most interesting game, we'll cap the Monday night game. It was a 14-10 win for the Patriots over the Bills,
Is
and
that the game that Mac Jones threw 2 passes for 19 yards?
he threw 3 passes. He completed 2,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. That's what I meant. Complete. It was two for
yeah,
three for 19 yards.
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, yeah.
That's just insane. Like,
Fewest pass attempts in a win since 1974. So
wow. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
insane.
and it was in wintry, terrible conditions in Buffalo. The
I think
weather
there was
was
a
just
15-yard punt at one point or
yeah,
something
yeah.
real
It,
low
it
like
was it
that,
was
like
just
into the
terrible.
wind. It was
But
terrible.
honestly, you know what? That game is tailor made for Bill Belichick football. Just defensive, just handing off the football, and Bill just proved a point. Bill and Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, just proved a point that we're just going to run this ball. And Ramondre Stevenson had like 22 carries for 75 yards. Damian Harris had over 100 yards, and yeah, the Patriots just tore it up. Um, and even
That's
though
kind of your only choice when you got weather like that. I mean, those
yeah,
shitty rain games and the really heavy winds,
yeah,
it just gets to a point where you can't really throw the ball. You can't kick the ball
yeah,
without, shit
yeah,
happening and the wind taking it.
yeah,
So, what else are you going to do other than run the ball?
and we're getting into that point of the season where that's going to be what a lot of this weather is going to be. Back in games taking place in the East. So, and crazy enough, here we are 1 year after the Patriots were down, and I remember first episode we ever had. we talked about are the Patriots back, and right now, at 9-4, the Patriots are currently the number one seed in the AFC.
Yep. So
So
it looks like
Bill
they're
Bill
doing
had
pretty
one
good.
off season where he went 7-9, and new rookie quarterback, in the mold of Tom Brady, and boom, right back to season's not over yet, obviously, but that loss does drop Buffalo down to 7-5. So New England has 2 games on them in
Yeah.
that division. But another thing to mention, Dolphins at 6-7, so the Dolphins are climbing their way up too. So notable. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get into some other stuff here real quick. There's uh there's been a quarterback change officially announced after 12 weeks of the NFL season in Houston. Apparently there was a problem in Houston.
Apparently there was a problem in Houston.
Yeah,
Oh shit!
yeah,
Who would have known?
yeah. So they've officially they're going with David Mills for the rest, or Davis Mills. Sorry for
Davis
the
Mills.
yeah Davis Mills for the rest of the season. I was thinking of David Culley. Sorry. So David Culley said that the
Or thinking
move.
of yourself.
Yeah, no. David Culley said that the move gives the team the best chance to win. Um, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Seeing as the Texans are 2-10, and their only 2 victories on the season were games that Tyrod Taylor started. So I don't know.
Yes, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, 0-6 in the games that Davis Mills started. So it seems like more, they want to see what they've got out of the rookie. With the upcoming,
Yeah, that
realizing
makes
that
sense.
this is a lost season. But
Yeah.
at least call it what it is, David Culley. This is not what gives you the best chance to win.
Yeah, that's
This,
just a straight out lie.
yeah,
Like, come on, man. Like, and maybe giving him the experience so you'll win in
yeah,
the future, like maybe, but that's
yeah.
ridiculous.
In
Ridiculous.
in that game where I saw them beat the Titans in that huge upset, Tyrod Taylor scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. So I mean, comparatively, and we'll go ahead and throw the stats up on the screen here. But Davis Mills, they both started 6 games. Davis Mills completed 65.5% of his passes for 1,406 yards, 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, um, with a 78.4 rating. And while Tyrod Taylor had 966 yards passing, a 5 touchdown to 5 interception touchdown to interception ratio, but he provided 151 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, which is an element that
Yeah.
Davis Mills obviously didn't. Good for a 7.9 yard average. So we'll have to see if that move makes a difference. Gets the Texans any more wins. I know, as we mentioned earlier on the show, we think that the Texans might have the worst
Yeah.
team in the NFL.
I was gonna say, like, frankly, I don't really care that much either
Yeah,
way. It's kind of when it's one of those teams where I'm just like, man, I'm just not interested. It's just like we're gonna talk about it and all, but like the Texans are just one of those teams where like even if I'm listening about the Cowboys, like I at least care. We gotta play them a lot. I at least want to, like
yeah,
oh, I feel bad for Texans fans. I don't even understand how they've only existed since like 2001, like or something like that,
yeah.
like
2003.
2003. I knew it
Yeah,
was somewhere around then.
yeah. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, obviously the whole team is kind of a disaster. In the last game they played against the Colts, they lost 31-0, and they actually benched Tyrod in favor of Davis Mills, and they both played pretty equally awful. I
Pretty
think.
terribly.
Yeah, I think Tyrod was 5 out of 13. I think Davis Mills was
Oof.
6 out of 14. So I think it was like, and Davis Mills had 2 picks. But yeah, I mean, you got to see what you got with the rookie. I mean, especially with you know draft position coming up, and yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure what they'd really like to be seeing is Deshaun Watson out there, but obviously that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
12 games in and no sign of him. There was former Oakland Raider and Cleveland Brown head coach Hugh Jackson has landed a new coaching gig. He's going to be taking over, as reported by Tom Pellisario, that he's agreeing to become the head coach of Grambling State, which is a college university. He had recently served as the offensive coordinator for Tennessee State under Hall of Fame running back and first-year head coach Eddie George. So Eddie George was the head coach there in his first season, and he hired Hugh as his offensive coordinator. and yeah, he's actually going to be taking over at Grambling State. Now, what's notable about Hugh is he got his first head coaching opportunity in the NFL in 2011. Spent one season with the Raiders, where he led them to an 8-8 finish, and got fired because they were just wanting to make a regime change after that. Wasn't they were just bringing in a new GM. I think Reggie McKenzie was coming in at that time, if I'm correct, and yeah, they ended up just wanting to bring in their head coach, so they ended up firing him after one season. Because usually like 8-8 for a first year head coach is pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say that. Yeah, that's stupid. Like, if
yeah,
you get 8-8 in your first year, why would you fire the guy? Like,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
just
That's
dumb. But
encouraging, and especially because the Raiders didn't do as well as 8-8 the year before.
yeah, what the?
So after that, he would take
Ugh.
over and go serve as for his friend Marvin Lewis on the Bengals staff as the Bengals offensive coordinator, and he served in that position until he got his second coaching opportunity for the Cleveland Browns, which he took over there in 2016.
And his first year was a 1-15 season.
Yeah.
So I guess Oakland didn't really make a bad call on getting rid of him
Yeah, I
after the
mean
8-8
he
season.
had a rough go in Cleveland. Like he took over a Cleveland team that was in really bad disarray. I remember watching a lot of their games during that time frame. So yeah, 1-15 in his first season. So they end up keeping him, and then in his second season they go 0-16. So at that
Hmm.
point he was 1-31 after two NFL seasons.
How did he get another year? I mean, that's
Yeah.
like got to be a story of the
So
decades. Like,
yeah, he might have the worst winning percentage of any NFL head coach. So
probably. I mean, I would bet money on that. I'd bet like
yeah,
a lot of money on that.
so he ended up like we mentioned, coming back for a third year. They brought him back because they really liked what he could do. They thought he was really good with the players. And in his third year was Baker's rookie year. So that's when they drafted Baker Mayfield and everything. And they started out in that game in that year. They were 2-5-1. So they got rid of him after 8 seasons. But there were like 4 or 5 games that they were in overtime. Whether they won or lost, but they were really competitive.
Yeah,
So it looked like they were finally starting to turn the corner, and then they fired him. So that was
yeah,
kind of interesting. And
that's
the guy they
weird.
replaced him with was Freddie Kitchens, and he got fired after one season too. So, I mean, Cleveland seems finally happy with Kevin Stefanski, the guy they have now. He finally
Yeah,
got into the playoffs, but yeah, that was that was what he did in the NFL. So definitely not a good win loss percentage there. He hasn't ever been a head coach in college, but he has been an offensive coordinator most recently at Tennessee State, as we mentioned, and then from '97 to 2000 at USC, he was the offensive coordinator.
yeah. And next, some pretty sad news, I would say. I
Yeah,
mean, this is something no one ever wants to hear. But former Pro Bowl receiver Demarius Thomas was found dead in his home on Thursday night at the age of 33.
yeah,
Roswell in Georgia, not in New
New
Mexico, because
Mexico.
that's what I thought at first. But
Yeah,
police department confirmed in a statement to NFL media. Preliminary information is that Thomas's death stems from a medical issue. Not sure what that entails exactly, but sure
yeah,
maybe get more details later.
yeah.
They have no other reason to believe otherwise.
Mild cardiac arrest is what I've been
Oh, is that
what
okay?
we've been
Man,
informed
that's
of.
insane at 33 years old.
Yeah, he just
Yeah,
retired last year too. So I mean, the guy was obviously not fucking sucking down cheeseburgers for the last 3 years. I mean, he was in game shape up until like a
yeah,
year ago. So really makes you wonder what that could have been.
yeah. He was a great player. I mean, he posted 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons in Denver from 2012 to
Yeah,
2016. One of Peyton Manning's favorite targets.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Peyton loved to throw to him, and they actually won that Super Bowl against actually Ron and the Panthers. It was denying Ron his one Super Bowl was when they yeah,
Poor Ron.
I know. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a sad story. Obviously, thoughts and prayers go out to the family and all of his friends. From everything that I read, people said he was like a really great teammate from the statements that John Elway released, and Peyton said something. Peyton said he was, he was a better person than he was a player, and he was a Hall of Fame player. So it's like, that kind of just tells you how he was
Yeah,
thought of. So yeah, definitely sad, unfortunate news, and like we said, thoughts and prayers go out to the family.
definitely.
And then last thing we just wanted to cover as far as general NFL news was, speaking of the disarray of, we've had a lot. So I mean, if you're a Houston Texans fan, and it seems like we're shitting on your team,
Like,
it's
sorry, but
it's not you, it's just the team. It's just what's going on with the team right now. They've cut bait with a lot of good players this season. From Philip Lindsay, I know we covered that in an episode not that long ago, and now Zach Cunningham, their star linebacker, who actually ended up leading the NFL in tackles last year with 164 tackles. So obviously not a lack of productivity. Um, from
yeah, the Texans just don't make sense to me, man. I mean, they're just like just bad. I mean, like we said earlier, the Lions might have a worse record, but God, the Texans just look like a giant shit show.
if the
Like
Lions played the Texans, I think the Lions win that game. Like
I
that.
would bet like $1,000 that the
Yeah.
Lions would win that game, even with
Lions
one
have a lot
win.
of heart. Lions have a lot of heart. The Texans don't seem like they know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, they're like, are we playing in the NFL? Or are we playing like flag football?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, Cunningham was. It didn't take him long to be, a free agent because he actually didn't even clear waivers because upon being released, he was picked up by AFC South rival, the Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
So
Well, they're a strong team, so
yeah, so he literally went from being last in the AFC South to being first in the
just
AFC
being
South in the
first.
same day. It's like, all right, that's a pretty good score.
He's like, all right, okay, cool. I
Did
like
it.
this.
He did it without all the game planning and hard work and everything. He just cleared waivers. But yeah, so he was inactive for week 13 for the game against the Colts, which was obviously, as we mentioned, a bad game for all of the Texans. Apparently, he showed up late for COVID testing, and reports are that he and the coaching staff did not see eye to eye. And this is not the first time that several players have called out David Culley, the Texans coach. After they let go of Philip Lindsay earlier, Brandon Cooks, the Texans' top receiver, said something to the extent of like, "What the hell?" or like, "This is bullshit" on like Twitter, or just was like really expressing deep discontentment with the team. So not where you want your locker room to be. I mean, I would say that this is on pace with probably being where Jacksonville's at this point. Just like
Yeah,
really. And ironically, both teams have a 2-10 record, Jacksonville and the Texans. So
yeah.
yeah, but
But the Lions with 1-10, I still like the Lions better.
yeah, I mean the Lions, like I feel like have hope. The Lions have direction. The Lions I feel like are going to be something. Like nobody came in and
Maybe.
expected the Lions to be an 8-win team their first year. Like nobody expected that. Like everybody knew that Dan Campbell was going to have a work in progress. But yeah, just to give his numbers for the season real quick. In the 10 games that he played in, and he was only inactive for games due to disciplinary reasons. He had 67 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, and 3 passes defensed. And he actually played the Tennessee Titans week 11 as a member of the Texans and had 11 tackles. Now he'll get a chance to play Houston week 18. So he's actually getting to go head to head with both of his former teams in the same season. So that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting. Don't the Niners play the Texans
Yeah,
too?
yeah.
Oh, so you guys got a good guaranteed win there.
That's a good
That
one.
must be nice. We got 5 fucking straight divisional games.
I
You have
know.
I was looking at that earlier. You guys have a pretty easy ending schedule. You
Hey,
got 2 games you got to worry about, and you
okay.
got
We've
3
got
that are fucking
we've
easy.
got Cincinnati and the Rams, which are our top two, and the
Yeah,
Bengals
those are
are.
the 2. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Those are the 2 I think I was looking at that are
yeah,
the only 2 that are like a
yeah.
little bit more of a
But
threat. I
other
mean,
than that
anything can always
Rams game,
happen, but
we're through all of our division shit. And don't be. I don't write the schedule, dog. You know that. Go send that
fuck that
email to
shit.
go send that email to Goodell's office or something. Fucking let him know
Come
you're
on,
pissed off.
Roger. What the fuck is
Raja.
this shit?
Yeah.
What's up, Redskins fans? Welcome to this week's Redskins Rundown. It is week number 4 of Victory Week. So we got 4 in a row, baby. We're on a hot streak. This last game was very, very close, just like against Seattle. Closer than I would have liked it to be. I mean, the Seattle game, that should not have been anywhere near that close based on the time of possession and the yardages. But this game was close pretty much the whole time. It ironically ended in a 17-15 final score, just like last week. So that's like a first in so many years. I forget the exact stat I saw, but it's in a long time that's like never happened. But to get 2 weeks in a row like that, you don't see that. If somebody put a bet on that, they're a millionaire now.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, the game started out really good. Washington scored on the first drive of the game when Heinicke connected with Logan Thomas for an amazing one-handed touchdown catch.
Yeah, that was really nice.
That was really great to see.
Logan Thomas made a great play on it, and that was
awesome. And having him back was so great, and that's why we needed him back. I mean, I was going to mention, it's hard not to talk about him. I mean, we already know he was unfortunately injured later, which I'll get more into what happened with that. But yeah, it was really nice to see him back out there, and that was a beautiful catch. And we've seen him do that a number of times before.
Yeah, he had another nice play too at one point. Like he had 3 catches for 48 yards and the touchdown in that game. So and then the week prior, I think he had 3 catches for 30 yards. So his two games back, he definitely was making an impact. But yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, you just hope that now, with John Bates starting to develop.
Yeah, he has looked good. I mean, I really hate that Logan Thomas is out again, but because seeing him back, it was like that flash of like, yes.
Yeah, he's by far the most explosive tight end, but hopefully they can get Seals Jones back, and I mean, it's obviously not going to be the same, but I mean, and then Samis Reyes is also, I mean, we'll see if he's actually going to get targeted in some games.
I feel like not, but
he has been out there blocking more in more than just special teams packages, so.
And what was nice about this, touchdown, it was Washington's second first quarter touchdown of the season. As everyone knows, we have a hard time getting the ball going initially in games. It's kind of always been a thing. Seems like not always, but most of the time, it seems like the second quarter goes better for us. But it's always good when we actually do get something going in the first quarter.
Right. Definitely capture that momentum early. Absolutely.
Yes. The Raiders would punt after picking up a couple initial first downs on their opening drive. They would add a 52-yard field goal right before the half to make the game 7-3. So going into the half, it was looking good. A pretty low-scoring game, but we were winning the game.
A lot of defense, yeah. And I mean,
absolutely.
Really, there was just, I mean, the Raiders weren't trying a lot of stuff downfield in that game. Obviously, we've talked about on this show earlier in the year what happened with loss of their deep threat, Henry Ruggs. Obviously, unfortunate situation, but.
Yeah.
The new guy they signed, Deshaun Jackson, former Eagle, former Redskin, former, just about everywhere. He was like not 100%. So, I mean, he only ended up catching 1 pass for 14 yards, and that wasn't until the third quarter. So the Raiders really didn't attempt a lot of deep stuff. And then they also didn't have Waller. So, I mean, their passing game was pretty limited, which was definitely a good thing for you guys. And you guys definitely kept them hemmed up pretty well, though. And on top of that, you got Carr for a couple sacks.
Yeah, it's very surprising considering we're dealing with a lot of injuries too. I mean, Chase Young's out, Montez Sweat is out.
Right.
I mean, Montez might be back, I think, against the Cowboys. Let's really hope so. But, now Logan Thomas is out. So it's like we're dealing with, but somehow we have this 4-game win streak. If you had asked me 4 weeks ago, given the situation, I'd be like, there's no fucking way.
No way, yeah.
But, it's starting with the Tampa Bay win that I was at. It was like, dude, that, I could not believe. And then winning again and then
they're a hot team.
It's been nice.
Short of the Miami Dolphins, you guys are like probably one of the hottest teams. And we were right there too. But we just couldn't get it done against Shit-Addle. Fucking goddamn Rainy City bitch.
You'll come back next week for sure. Absolutely.
We just got to get the Bungles. Oh man, I swear to God.
You'll have that.
If Joey Burrow deals on us, I swear to God, man.
So a little later in the game, the Raiders added a second field goal in the third quarter for the only scoring of the quarter. So It was 7-6 at that point. And then until Washington extended its lead in the fourth when Heinicke threw his second touchdown pass of the night to Gibson to put Washington ahead 14-6.
Right.
So, at this point in the game, you're looking like, okay, all right, it's pretty late. Things should be good. Unfortunately, the Raiders responded with a 5-play, 75-yard touchdown drive of their own, with Josh Jacobs scoring a 1-yard touchdown run after the drive, at the end of the drive.
Yeah.
The Raiders would attempt to go for 2 and tie the game, but thankfully, Derek Carr overthrew and opened Bryant Edwards in the end zone. So it kept it 14-12.
Yeah.
So that was crucial.
Yeah, yeah, and you could tell that in that game, Carr, basically he always likes to go to Renfro anyway, but Renfro was targeted 10 times, caught 9 of them for 102 yards.
Yeah,
So
I
you
remember
you could
before the game,
tell,
I was like, it's gonna be the
yeah,
Hunter Renfro show for the Raiders
yeah,
today.
and I mean he was really the one getting the work. I mean Brian Edwards had
Yeah,
3 catches for 30 yards, but Foster Moreau, the backup tight end, 1 catch for 34 yards. He's the one that was filling in for Waller, but they really obviously couldn't do with him what they wanted to.
that's a good catch. If you got 34 yards on one catch, then like
Yeah,
that's a
they
good
hit him.
one
They
catch
hit
at
him
least.
like on a deep pass up the seam,
Mm.
from what I remember. But yeah, Carr was 28 out of 38 for 249 yards on the season. And they put up an interesting stat. The Raiders, when Carr throws for over 300, 6-0. When Carr throws for under 300, which he threw for 249, 0
Oh,
and
and six,
6.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a crazy stat. It
crazy
seems
stat.
like it's true. Like that means they can't run the ball that well. Is what that
Yeah,
means. Like if Derek
yeah.
Carr can't deliver, then they're fucked.
Yeah, Josh
So
Jacobs did have 13 carries for 52 yards and the Raiders' one and only touchdown. But yeah, their ground game wasn't that effective. And then Carr was their second leading rusher with 2 carries for 24 yards.
yeah, well, to get into the worst part of this game, I mean, obviously the
Yeah.
wins are great, but like just like when we played the Buccaneers and Chase Young got hurt for the season, we now have a recurrence of that with Logan Thomas. He's only been back for 2 games, and he took a low hit, which should have been called for a personal foul at the very
Yeah,
least, but
I
it
would say
wasn't,
so.
and it caused him to leave the game and not return. And it was later announced he would be out for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because they're
he
putting him
played.
on. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah,
I was
maybe
just
say
gonna,
that
yeah,
one.
because they're gonna put him on IR, and that's the one thing with even with the new flexible IR rules. If you put a player on IR, then they come back, and then you have to put them on IR again, then they can't return. So
And they initially thought, didn't they think he had initially tore his ACL and
yeah,
MCL,
so
but then it
it's
was
not
okay.
as
That was
bad.
him. Yeah,
It's not as bad as
not as
that,
bad
but
as they
he's still
thought.
gonna miss more than probably at least 2 months. Maybe if they make a deep playoff run, if it's something like that, maybe. But yeah, I mean, at least for the regular season, he's not gonna.
Which is unfortunate, but
Yeah,
we have been doing pretty well with the backups and next man up,
yeah,
and so far, I mean,
absolutely.
we're 4 games into a 4-game win streak. You can't argue with that. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
it
you
sucks
didn't
these
have
players are
and you
out,
didn't
but
have him for 2 of those games, so I mean they've
exactly.
been winning
So
without him. So
it might be fine, but
yeah,
after that, a few plays later, Taylor would be hit slightly while throwing the ball and resulting in an interception by Nate Hobbs, which
yeah,
this was clearly because his arm was hit. I know
yeah.
there's like the few Heinicke haters out there. They're like, oh, he threw a pick when no,
No,
his
it,
arm
it
was hit.
it
Like,
shows it on the replay clearly. Like he
yeah,
gets he gets
absolutely.
rattled like as he's like releasing the ball. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So yeah, unfortunately, the Raiders take 4 minutes and 27 seconds off the clock, but could only come away with a third Daniel Carson field goal. But they would take a 15-14 lead. So at this point, I'm like shitting myself.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
yeah. Well, and then just real quick here before we move on and recap the end of the game. Daniel Carlson today, the Raiders kicker, signing a 4-year, 18.5 million extension. So that's
Oh
big
yeah,
big news for kickers everywhere. And he earned his money on that game. Going 3 for 3 with a long of 52, and he's been a good kicker for them all season. So definitely well
we'll
earned.
have some even better kicker news here shortly to wrap
Yeah,
up the game. But
yeah,
Heinicke would leave Washington down the field 44 yards in a minute and 45 to get in position for new kicker Brian Johnson to kick a 48-yard field goal with 37 seconds left on the clock. And this would be his first kick with the team. And I'm sure all of us, given the kicking woes this season, were extremely nervous. Didn't want to watch it, but he did make the kick. But there was 37 seconds left on the clock, so we did have to hold them for a few plays. So the game was not over until the very end, but fortunately we did hold them and did win the game. So
yeah. No, that was definitely huge, and I mean, obviously not knowing what you were getting with the kicker situation, and he almost even like pulled it. Like it was good that he was able to hit it
yeah,
in there. So
it was a little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
off, but it went
So,
in.
but
That's
yeah,
all I
yeah,
care about. It
yeah,
went in.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good sign, and that's good for his confidence and everything like that. So, and
Absolutely.
he made his 2 extra points that he attempted earlier in the game. So definitely,
That's true as well.
yeah. And
So good news on the fourth straight win. We did also have Wes Schweitzer placed on IR with an ankle injury, which is unfortunate, adding to the list of injured players, but we do have 4 straight wins, and it seems like the team is clicking. So going into Dallas
Yeah,
this
big
next
game,
week, which
huge
is
game.
a game I'm extremely nervous about, and we definitely need to win. We would have 5 straight wins, but oh man, I'm nervous. But
And
let's
these head
hopefully. But
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and these head-to-head matchups are like a great opportunity for you guys to, deal damage to them directly. Because you guys are 2 games back right now.
absolutely, absolutely, and we have to play them twice. So I mean, yeah, I'm very nervous about this game. I want to be optimistic, but just I'm extremely nervous. I mean, I really hope we win, but
Yeah,
because we're on that 4 game win streak, it's like God, can we get 5? Like that would be ridiculous.
yeah,
But
that
hopefully
would be
next week
huge.
we come back and it's victory week 5. But
Hopefully,
we will see.
absolutely. Stay tuned. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yep. See you next week.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's Niners news update. Today we're gonna be, capping off the unfortunate game that was, our second loss to Seattle of the season, a 30-23 loss. For the second time, I thought we would definitely have a chance to beat them, and thought that we should have beaten Seattle in that game. Um,
Yeah, I would agree.
yeah, and the game got off to a pretty scary start when you know kick returner and special teams player Trenton Cannon, also backup running back, while going down to cover the opening kickoff, got run into by his own guy, and ended up having to be taken off the field in an ambulance after the collision. And it was actually recently reported as well that he would be placed on IR. So he's at least got to miss 3 games after that. So hopefully he'll be all right, because he was a pretty good kick returner for us. I mean, he'd had a number of pretty explosive returns at points. But yeah, so that's how the game started. We did, however, force a good quick 3 and out. Um, Russell completed like his first 3 passes, I want to say, for about 3 or 4 yards total, forced like a 4th and 6. However, with probably the fake of the season, Seattle ran a perfectly executed fake punt direct snap to running back Travis Homer, who took it 80 yards up the left side of the field for a touchdown to put Seattle up 7-0. So
Yeah, that was one of
obviously,
the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Obviously, nobody was expecting that on the Niners. They
no,
weren't covering the
no.
edges there, and we got burned, and definitely
Yeah.
set us up for you know not starting as best as we could. So on our first drive, we would end up going 3 and out and having to punt the ball, and then as we've mentioned before, the Seahawks, who had their debut of Adrian Peterson making his Seahawks debut. His first carry ever as a Seahawk went for a loss of 5 yards when Big
Mm,
DJ Jones, who's going to be a free agent next year and hopefully gets re-signed with the team, because he deserves to make a lot of money. He's had some great plays this season, and this was probably his best game. But he got in the backfield and just took down Adrian Peterson for a loss of 5. Now, on the very next play, this is why I'm saying that DJ Jones is earning his money. They throw a tight end screen to Gerald Everett, their tight end, and DJ Jones would punch the ball out, which Emmanuel Mosley would recover. So we took over in Seattle territory at the 24. So great field position. We're already down 7-0 at that point. Literally the first play, Jimmy hits Kittle in the back of the end zone between 2 Seattle defenders for a touchdown, and that puts us back in the game 7-7 after the extra point.
yeah, that
So
was nice. That was just a
yeah,
nice throw, nice catch. All of it was just,
yeah,
and you really needed that turnover there after that, the fake punt play with
yeah,
running 80
yeah,
yards down. I mean, you needed something like
yeah. The,
that to
the
at least,
momentum really
keep
killed
it
us.
going.
So we definitely
Unfortunately, though,
needed.
it seems like that punt return, or I'm sorry, fake punt is kind of what almost sealed it. It was, 30-23, right at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. So
So
that's
it's like
exactly
it
a
seems like
7 point.
that
Yeah,
one goddamn thing. It's like that's kind of
yeah.
what set it up.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, and really something that could have been absolutely prevented. We normally play pretty sound special teams, but we just weren't in a good position there. So a couple plays later, or a couple drives later, I'm sorry, Jimmy threw his first interception of the game, where it was intercepted by Seattle linebacker Bobby Wagner. He ended up getting a nice pick where he just dropped into coverage and just intercepted Jimmy while I think he was looking for Kittle. Um, on the defense's fourth drive of the game, Emmanuel Moseley would exit the game with a high ankle sprain. Now, this is notable because we're already playing without Jason Verrett, our other starting corner, who we haven't had since week 1 against Detroit when he tore his ACL. So now Moseley goes down, and he's expected to miss at least 3 weeks. And so, yeah, I mean, both of our top corners are down. Fortunately, we had Diamador Lenore come in, and he, made some plays, but he got beat a couple times as well. So then they also went with Dante Johnson at one point. And then, we also saw some of Ambry Thomas, our other rookie. So we're going to have to see going up against Cincinnati this week because Cincinnati has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and C.J. Uzoma, and Joe Mixon's a good running back who can also catch passes. So Cincinnati's got a pretty good offense. So not a team that you want to go into banged up without your top 2 corners, but hopefully we'll be all right. Luckily, we've got pretty good depth though, so hopefully we can get through it.
Yeah, that had to help Russell there that game, having the defense banged up because he hasn't had a great season. So
yeah,
that probably made things a bit easier for him, to keep
yeah,
the game just slightly ahead like that.
yeah. That's true. That is very true. Now on the very next play, Bosa would end up getting to Russell Wilson and forcing a fumble, a sack fumble, and a huge loss of 23 yards. Now Seattle did recover the ball, but yeah,
But 23 yards
yeah,
lost. I mean,
yeah.
that's still pretty damn good.
Yeah, but Bosa able to get his 12th sack of the season. So 12 games, 12 sacks as we continue to monitor that situation.
Yeah, let's hope that if that goes one a game the whole fucking season,
Yeah,
that is going to be
he'll finish with 17 if that's the case.
great.
Yeah, yeah. And then let's see here. So basically, at that point, they were in like a third and forever situation. So Russell went on a scramble, picked up a few yards, and they ended up attempting a 56-yard field goal, which was missed wide right. So the Niners take over with really good field position. We end up going on a 9-play, 46-yard drive after the missed field goal, and end up capping the drive with Elijah Mitchell getting his 5th rushing touchdown of the season to put us ahead 14-7. So that was the score at the end of the first quarter, 14-7. The Niners would also go ahead a couple drives later and add a 50-yard Robbie Gould field goal to go up 17-7. So at this point, it was basically starting like our first game against Seattle, when I think we were up 21-7 at one point before Jimmy got hurt. So we got out. We both in both games we got out to really great starts against them, and we just couldn't finish.
Yeah, at that
Seattle,
point when it was 17-7, I kind of figured, I was like, all right, this is looking like it's in the bag.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I said the whole thing sealed it, but that's in hindsight. Obviously in the beginning of the game, you didn't know that, but it seems like, when you know the final score, you're like, man, if that one thing hadn't happened.
Yes.
But obviously you can say that about anything,
Yeah,
I guess.
Seattle's just, such a they really have our number, like we mentioned before, Russell's won 15 of his 19 starts against the Niners, and that's 4 straight for the Seahawks against us. So
yeah,
they've kind of been our kryptonite. We're the Rams' kryptonite, and they definitely are ours. But yeah, so Seattle would pull within one touchdown, or I'm sorry, within one score on a rushing touchdown by Adrian Peterson, his first as a Seahawk and 126th of his career. Which
I hate to be happy about that at all, but I like AP, so I'm well, good for him. At least he got a touch, but it sucks because you guys lost the game. But
it moved him into 10th all time. So as he continues trying to move up there with 126 touchdowns. So at that point the game's 17-14. So then Jimmy would find Kittle on a short pass in the flat, which Kittle would actually take 48 yards for the score to the house for his second touchdown of the game. But Robbie would end up missing the extra point. Now, that's the first extra point Robbie's missed all season. So that was kind of a bummer. And then that kept our lead at 9. So at that point, we were up 23-14. And then the Seahawks would get in within one touchdown right before the half on a last-minute drive where Russell Wilson throws his first touchdown pass of the game to rookie receiver Dwayne Eskridge to make the game 23-21 at the half. So we were still up at the half. We won the first quarter, we won the second quarter. We were definitely up at that point, but unfortunately, this is the point where we kind of
Kind of shit the bed.
yeah shit the bed exactly. So we get the ball coming out of the half, and Travis Benjamin, who's filling in by the way for Trenton Cannon, who's our return guy. He got obviously taken to the hospital earlier, but Travis Benjamin filling in there as the return guy, and he gets stripped of the ball. The opening kickoff of the second half. So Seattle
Hmm.
recovers, like already in the red zone with great field position. So fortunately, Seattle gets all the way down, to like the 5 yard line, but very fortunately, Russ is looking for tight end Gerald Everett, and Gerald Everett's their tight end who fumbled earlier. This is notable to mention him because he's been involved in a lot of turnovers in this game. But he's falling on his back trying to make the catch, and he like kicks the ball up in the air, and it ends up getting intercepted by K'Wan Williams, who would run the ball back out to about the Niners 5. Um, would have been better if he would have, just because he
Taking the
intercepted it in
touchback
the end zone. Yeah,
in the
taking
end
the
zone and
touchback.
gotten. Yeah, why
And
would
the
you do
reason
that?
I
Like,
mention that is because we failed to take advantage of that, and 3 plays later, after 2 unsuccessful run plays, um, Jimmy would be sacked in the end zone by Carlos Dunlap for a
mm,
safety to tie the game at 23-23. And the thing about a safety is you also, in addition to giving up the points, you have to punt the ball back to Seattle so they get the ball right back. So now we did start, our defense did play pretty well at that point, especially Aziz Al Shair. He was really, he's been playing great. And in this game we didn't have Fred Warner, so he really had to step up. And we were
yeah,
also without Marcel Harris, our other linebacker, because he had a concussion. No Debo in this game, so we were without several key players. Not to make any excuses, but obviously those are players that make your whole offense work, or your whole team work. But yeah, we ended up getting good pressure on Russell Wilson. We ended up getting 4 sacks on him on the day. One on the ensuing drive after they got the ball back from the safety. We ended up getting a big sack on third down, and Seattle would end up punting the ball back. So then Jimmy would hit Alyuk late in the third quarter for his first catch of the day. Alyuk didn't catch any passes until the third quarter. He ended up finishing with 3 for 55, being the top wide receiver in Debo's absence. But he did gain 21 yards on a 3rd and 5. But on the so yeah, we convert a 3rd and 5, and then on the very next play, Jimmy throws his second interception of the game. So
Jimmy.
yeah. So Jimmy did have 2 touchdowns in the game to George Kittle, but he also had 2 picks in this game. And Jimmy,
Mm.
historically, as we do, he tends to struggle like we do against Seattle. Some of his worst games are usually against the Hawks. But Russell would go on to throw a 12-yard touchdown pass to Lockett, who was the big hero against Washington last week, although not really
Yeah.
because they didn't
I
win.
mean, they didn't win, but yeah,
Yeah,
he was. He
yeah,
was. He got all the
yeah.
big. Yeah.
But that would put Seattle ahead 30-23 going into the fourth quarter, and it looked like the Seahawks were going to be able to put the game away with about 4 minutes left because they were about to go up and score again. But Russell threw a quick shovel pass to his running back. I think it was Rashad Penny. It wasn't Adrian Peterson at that point, and the ball was actually fumbled at like the 1 yard line. So the Niners recover it. So I mean, in this game, Seattle had 4 turnovers. We had 3. The 2 Jimmy interceptions, and then the 1 Travis Benjamin fumble. Um, which you can look at any number of things and say that either of those interceptions didn't happen, if that fumble coming out of the half didn't happen, or if that fake punt didn't happen, we probably,
Yeah, I was
if
noticing
any
that.
of
I was
those
like,
one
there's
things
like
didn't
a
happen,
whole bunch of
yeah,
things that
yeah,
actually,
that
if
like
like
if just
one of them
any
didn't
one of
happen,
those
like,
things didn't happen, we'd have won. Yeah. So
yeah,
and we
damn.
even had a shot. So we're backed up at our own 1, and Jimmy hits Kittle on a great gain of 29 yards. To get them out of being backed up and potentially taking another safety.
Yeah,
Kittle
don't
had his
need that.
best game of the season. He had 9 catches for 181 yards and two
Oof,
touchdowns. Yeah, so Kittle was great.
damn.
Yeah. So we on this drive, like Jimmy's like 5 for 5 getting the ball down there. So like everybody always says Jimmy's not good in the clutch moments. He gets us all the way down into the red zone, and we hit Aiyuk for his third catch of the game. He gets it down to the 7, so it's 1st and goal from the 7. We come out, we try to run 2 straight times with Elijah Mitchell and get like 2 yards, so really not getting much. So on 3rd and goal, we have to throw. And there was a questionable pass, and Jimmy's looking for Trent Sherfield, and like he gets tackled before the ball gets there, but there's no call for pass interference. So it's like, what the hell? So that forces 4th and goal with 22 seconds to go. And with 22 seconds to go, Carlos Dunlap, the guy who got the sack of Jimmy in the end zone earlier, bats the ball down at the line when Jimmy was looking for Trent Sherfield again, which, 4th and goal, Seattle takes over with like 18 seconds left and knees it out for the win. And you figure, if that's a game where we've got Debo in there, maybe that's where we're looking in those clutch moments is for Debo. But yeah.
Yeah, that could have easily been a winnable game. I mean,
it
when it came down to the wire, it really did. I mean,
it
that's one of
really
those
did.
games,
I mean,
just like the Washington game. It
we were
came down to the
at the
last
5, yeah, with a chance to win at the end of the game. So we definitely had a shot. Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, as far as injury news, Trenton Cannon and Emmanuel Mosley are both going to be going on IR. So they're both going to miss at least a minimum of 3 games each. Dre Greenlaw and Elijah Mitchell are both set to miss this game, but Debo and Fred Warner are both projected to play. They're both as questionable, and they did practice on Friday. So getting Debo and Fred back would be a huge addition, even if we don't have Elijah Mitchell. I do expect us to have the running backs of Jeff Wilson, and it's going to be Wilson and JaMychal Hasty that get most of the carries this week. So that'll be worth monitoring. But we've got the Bengals. They've got 3, dangerous receivers and a good tight end in Uzoma. And I think Joe Burrow's a really talented young quarterback, and their defense has only gotten better. So definitely going to be something to keep an eye on because Cincinnati's not the, easy. When I first saw that Cincinnati was our 17th win or 17th game of the season, I got excited because I was like, oh, okay, But Cincinnati's been a hot team this year, so I'm not looking at it as excitingly. So hopefully we still win.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they got some weapons there. But join us next week as we recap the Bengals game, and we'll see how that goes. And hopefully we will get back on the winning track. It was nice to win the 3 straight. Would have been nice to win that one, but we're still. If the season ended today, still in wild card position, so we just got to keep it going. And all you can do is win 1 game at a time. And
absolutely,
yeah. Tune in next week as we recap next week's game and take it easy, everybody. And that is our show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this week's edition of the Extra Point Show. Make sure you come back and follow along with us again next week, and like and subscribe if you haven't already. We have Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, so definitely check it out. I guess you probably know we have YouTube.
Oh, and also Facebook.
On YouTube, and also Facebook, yeah. Also on the Extra Point Show on Facebook. So definitely check it out. And we appreciate you guys following along with us, and look forward to recapping another great week of NFL action.
Definitely. Have a great night, everybody.